Hey everybody, welcome to episode 70 of Into the Necrosphere. I am joined today by Evan Hopper of Quell. He was on a couple of episodes ago. He's back today under unfortunate circumstances. Most of you will be aware of the very sad news that LG Petrov, frontman for Entombed and Entombed AD, passed away of bile duct cancer about a week ago. And I felt like in order for me to do an episode where I properly pay tribute to him, I needed somebody on who I know, who I have a friendship with already. And so really what you're going to hear is in my opinion, the best way to remember LG. This is two buddies cracking a beer, talking about Entombed's music, talking a whole lot of other shit, and just really appreciating the moment in which we find ourselves in. So that's going to be coming your way very shortly. I also recorded a very similar episode, at least as far as the theme is concerned, with Mike Hill of Tombs. That is going to be on his Everything Went Black podcast, and I believe it comes out about a week after this episode posts, depending on when you're watching or listening to it. If you don't yet listen to Everything Went Black on a regular basis, then make sure that you do. In my opinion, it is the best music podcast around. Mike is a fucking badass guy from an awesome band, and he's someone that I've developed a really good friendship and a rapport with over the last year or so. So it was awesome catching up with him, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy that conversation as well. If you don't follow me on social media yet, then make sure that you do. On Twitter, I'm at iNecrosphere. On Instagram and Facebook, I'm at Into the Necrosphere. I will share out when the Everything Went Black episode goes up, obviously. And I share a whole bunch of other stuff on there, including music I'm listening to, etc. Speaking of which, no demos, but I will do a review on this week's episode of the new Enforced record. I spoke about that on Friday on social media. And man, has that record caught me by surprise. It was a pretty slow week for new releases, and I kind of switched Enforced on, almost expecting to turn it off after about a half a song. And come the end of Friday, I think I listened to that sucker back-to-back about 8 times. It is fantastic. I'm going to tell you all about it after my conversation with Evan. And then what else is there to let you guys know about? Teespring. So if you guys are in the mood to show some love and support and wear your street cred proudly, then head over to the Into the Necrosphere Teespring store. There's hoodies, t-shirts, and various other merchandise on there. I'm actually busy designing a couple of new ones, and those will be on sale pretty soon. There's one that's going to say slaying poses and casting hexes since 2019. So that's going to be coming your way. And there's a couple of other ideas I'm fucking around with. So that'll be on sale soon. Outside of that, I have got a load of people lined up for the podcast over the next couple of weeks, including folks from well-known bands, less well-known bands. I know Mikhail from Fredensdal was supposed to be on this week's show, but that interview got moved, so that should be up next week. And then in the weeks after that, I am hopefully going to have the boys from Gravier over, Jesse Mathewson from Ken Mode, Chris Canella from Deerside, and a host of others. So plenty of reasons to stay tuned, plenty of reasons to hit that subscribe button if you don't do already. The show is available on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify every Tuesday for free. And if you're that way inclined, then do share, leave a review, comment, and all of those great things. But for now, I'm going to take a pause for the cause and introduce or reintroduce you all to my friend Evan Hopper of Quell. I may need to jump out in about 45 minutes or so, just for a couple of minutes. I've got a lamb shank ragu on the barbecue. So
Okay,
so I need to just make sure that everything is coup de la, because otherwise I'm gonna not have dinner. And living out in the middle of nowhere, it's not as simple as just running out to the shop and buying a burger or something. There are no shops.
You got some horses out there, though, don't you? I'm sure you could go the French way.
Mate, don't even make jokes like that. My girlfriend gets pissed off when I hurt the horse on Red Dead Redemption 2. So Now that all that being said, I know that we were going to toast to LG.
Yep.
I really feel like my beer now, so I think we're going to bring the toast forward and get started. So
absolutely,
I've got I don't know what you've got. I've got me a Camden Hell's Lager.
Okay.
Which I really like. I'm not as big of a beer guy as I used to be, but Hell's I fucking love. I actually don't as much as I can afford to. Actually, not really afford to, but as much as I'm able to, because they don't stock it everywhere. I think Hell's is pretty much the only thing that I drink.
Where does it?
Anyone from Hell's would like to send me some free shit, please go ahead.
Where does that hail from?
From the Camden town, mate.
Okay.
Basically, Camden town is known for a couple of things. One, poverty. Two, a local borough council that never cleans up the trash. Three, a lot of very cool live music venues. A bunch of tattoo studios. Nowadays, some pretty decent food places too. And then obviously there's brewery. So
wonderful. Well, cheers to Lars Jordan Petrov, and may rest in peace.
Yeah. Oh my God, that hits the spot.
Yeah,
I want to do the first thing I wanted to ask you is how's the local news or the local press responded, or have they responded to it whatsoever? I mean, the guy. It'd be one thing if it were some dude from some no-name black metal band that passed away, but this is a man from a highly influential band. Mm-hmm. Has the press acknowledged it at all? Has anything been said?
I haven't noticed anything. One of the main papers here is like Aftonbladet, and they have them all in the grocery stores and all over the subways and stuff like that. But I didn't really notice anything about him and any of the headlines. So I'm sure if he was covered in the local news, he was probably like a liner note somewhere. But didn't make any kind of front page stuff.
Very, 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 very back page, right?
Yeah, it might have been like one little square on the bottom right-hand corner or something, But no, yeah, and that's I guess that is what it is. But everything I've seen online is there's been a huge outpour of remembrances and and condolences for his family and everybody. So obviously he isn't he's still getting his recognition, I suppose, that he's due. But yeah, but who cares about normal media anyway?
No, definitely. Like I said, I was curious as to whether in his own home country at least there's a degree of recognition for what the guy achieved, because
when Roxette died, she was all over every single paper.
Of course,
yeah,
of course. That doesn't surprise me, by the way.
No, me neither.
But one thing that I was very surprised by, you mentioned the outpouring of emotions and everybody kind of coming out and giving their support. There's people from some really interesting backgrounds that came out and mentioned that they'd been fans for ages. Biohazard, Billy from Biohazard, Billy Graziade, he had a post about it. Jesse Matthewson from Ken Mode, and it's like you would think you'd expect a big a big kind of outcry in the death metal and the black metal scene, but definitely not from bands like that. So that was cool to see too. It kind of tells you how far Entombed's influence has stretched over the years.
That was we can go right into it. That was something that I wanted to comment on as well. When they're everything between Entombed and then Entombed AD, their career spans so long. But there's different iterations of what Entombed is. Everything from the first 3 albums and then into To Ride and Shoot Straight, and then they transition into a little bit more kind of what I think absolutely had something to do with a lot of the that NOLA scene and that sludge rock kind of stuff, you know what I mean? They're and if you look at you listen to Troy Sanders from Mastodon, you can hear a little bit of LG in his voice when he sings, and and then that just stuff I Hate God and Down and a lot of the sludgier stuff, even High on Fire, absolutely have to be somewhat inspired by Entombed, you know, because
I mean, if you think about it, High on Fire, Matt Pike sounds basically like a cross between LG and Lemmy.
yeah,
That's basically
right,
Matt Pike's voice.
yeah, no, but I mean, yeah, no, it's a fantastic band. And I was always really fond of them too, you know, because I always thought that like LG really defined a certain type of singing style that like really like at the same time, you know, you have bands like Obituary and Death and like even Gorguts and stuff that have this like kind of that, you know, that yo like kind of singing style, you know, and he was just kind of coming with more like just like that straight raw like in your face power kind of stuff, you know, like you know, and really just really unique, you know, and like again, like it kind of plays into a lot of the bands that like they're out today that you can just kind of hear like little hints of this and that like everywhere, like.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, and you can hear it in the guitar sound and the riffing style. You know, the shadow of Entombed looms large, particularly over a lot of these new generation death metal bands like Gatecreeper and bands like that. I mean, Gatecreeper, sound basically like Left Hand Path with a different vocalist.
Yeah. I can hear that for sure.
Yeah.
And then you have another side of bands that are like, trying to recapture that like Thomas Skogsbody sound, like from Sunlight Studios, the buzzsaw guitar sound, like, I mean, that's seeing a reemergence as well, too, like with, newer bands that are coming up that are trying to like sort of recreate that, that heavy feeling that, bands like Entombed had, like, or Dismember or whatever, like, like that Swedish Stockholm sound, is like still something that's sought after, like even to this day, and at the time, I mean, those guys were just working with what they had, it's just like, just down-tuned guitars and like a pedal, like just cranked all the way up, to 100, and then just record, and now it's like people want that sound, and
it's like I mean, it's like a lot of the black metal bands from Norway, a lot of them didn't, they were 17 and 18 years old, and they didn't have the money for decent equipment, so that's why the albums sound as raw as they sound. Some guys, probably over time decided that was the way to sound true, but most of the bands moved away from that. Gorgoroth, which is the truest of the true, by the time they hit, Twilight of the Idols and Ad Majorem, Satanas Glorium, it already advanced, and the fidelity on those records is actually quite high, especially by black metal standards.
And it's interesting you brought up black metal too, because actually LG and the guitar player Uffe Cederlund, he and LG were both in Morbid with Periolan, like before Periolan, before he went on to like sing for Mayhem. And I mean, they were in there for like a brief stint, but still kind of interesting that they like, had something, some little ties to that as well.
No, so this is going to come out before the Everything Went Black episode that I did with Mike, but I did an episode of Everything Went Black with Mike Hill, where we were talking about LG as well, and the conversation, much as all our conversations go, went into all sorts of crazy fucking directions. So if by the time you guys are listening to this, if it's not out yet, it's coming out I think a week from the release of this episode. Make sure you check it out. It was a fucking brilliant conversation, and I think everyone knows my views on Mike. Badass dude, and
he's great.
From the hardest of hard bands. But anyway, it was him that mentioned it to me. I never knew that. I was blown away by that. I was like, Jesus Christ! I always thought he was a death metal guy, and death metal guys and black metal guys in the old days tended to run in different packs.
Yeah, but I guess in that sense, like they were just so few of them at that time. When all that was going on, that's like better to just align yourself with anybody who's like remotely in a similar scene that you're into, and then so the band after that will be Nihilist, right? And Nihilist will eventually become Entombed. And then but the bass player, I believe it was, from Nihilist, he leaves and goes and forms Unleashed. So like these guys were really, really, a part of something big that was
Yeah.
gonna, you know, I mean, at the time they were just a bunch of kids like just fucking off, which is great, you know, but who would have known like the kind of impact that those bands would have had, like, you know, 20, 30 years later, you know,
Yeah.
it's amazing. Yeah.
You know, so the thing is, I kind of, so how I got into Entombed was through Wolverine Blues, and Wolverine
Okay.
Blues was sort of, it was one of those gateway records alongside The Bleeding by Cannibal Corpse,
Mhm.
Covenant by Morbid Angel, the first Deicide record, and The Fourth Crusade by Bolt Thrower.
Mm.
I got that album, I think, probably about 6 months or so after it came out, and it was, you know, reading a Metal Maniacs, you know, people were raving about it, and I was like, shit, I need to get this. So I ordered it from a shop in Johannesburg called CD Warehouse.
Okay.
Waited about fucking 5-6 weeks for it to arrive, as you always did in South Africa.
That's not too bad.
and loved it. I mean, by the way, it's a 4-hour drive from where I lived, from where the CD was, so I may as well have gotten on a fucking bike and gotten it myself. But anyway, it was. I mean, that I absolutely loved. But what I'm driving at is I was not there for kind of that 1990 explosion when all those bands suddenly came out. You know, when Slowly We Rot came out, Deicide came out, and all of the bands from Sweden came out.
Right.
For you, what was the biggest influence on you? Because I mean, you're a musician as well.
Yeah.
Was it the Swedish scene, or, you know, being the fact that you were living in America at the time, was it the Tampa Bay scene?
Okay.
What was the bigger scene?
So first off, I should just say that I'm 33 years old. So I was born in 1988. So obviously I missed all the things as they were happening. But when I listened to all kinds of heavy music because of my dad and my cousin and stuff like that when I was a young kid. But when I got like real hip to like real death metals in my freshman year of high school, and I had a guy that I knew that skateboarded with me, and he was 2 years older, 2 grades higher, so he was a junior. And we hung out sometimes. And one night I went over to his place, and he showed me like 3 albums. And those 3 albums were Once Upon the Cross by Deicide, Gateways to Annihilation by Morbid Angel, mm-hmm. and Clandestine by Entombed.
Yeah.
And after that, I was just like, you know, I was really into, I mean, I've always been into punk rock and hardcore, and I started off kind of in that world. But after I heard like those albums, you know, just kind of like, it was on from that point on, you know. And so as far as influence, I think it really began with, you know, that kind of death metal, like, you know, that just, which is a really broad like thing, because, you know, if you think of like Gateways to Annihilation, Morbid Angel, that's kind of like, I mean, it's straightforward death metal in a lot of ways. It's also kind of psychedelic, especially with Trey Azagos, like, you know, solos that happen like throughout that, you know. I believe you have Eric Rutan on that album as well.
Yeah, he's on there. I think he wrote, if memory serves me correctly, he wrote 2 tracks on that album as well.
Okay. Yeah, and you know, and then just listening to like the whole package and like Tucker's vocals on top of that, like it just, that really encapsulated me. And then Entombed really encapsulated me as well, because at the time I was really into like D-beat kind of like punk rock, you know, like Discharge and bands like this. And so Clandestine to me has got a lot of that, like sort of like raw, like, you know, Repulsion and Discharge and stuff like that, like D-beat kind of punk rock kind of attitude. But the lyrical content was, you know, ponderous, and the guitars were way heavier, of course, you know. And so, and then Deicide is just straight, you know, rape.
Yeah. I mean, it's a rite of passage for everybody to hear. Right. When they hear the "Father, why have you forsaken me?" Dun 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 dun. I mean, that's like I said, right? Total rite of passage stuff for everybody.
Kill the Christians, like it's just like, I mean, when I was 13 years old and I saw a song called "Kill the Christians," growing up in Virginia, like, I mean, it was predominantly religious state, you know. So like, I mean, when you hear something like that, you're just like, what? People do this,
dude.
like,
I mean, to this day, there's not a lot of bands that have taken it to the level the Deicide took it to on Once Upon a Cross. I mean, I remember, you know, opening the cover for the first time, and it's like Jesus dissected and stuff like that. And I mean, it was shocking stuff. But the interesting thing for me always about Deicide's lyrics, especially on those first 3 records, if you read them, they're actually pretty thoughtful lyrics. It's not like it's nothing, you know, it's not like dark funeral lyrics, like I'm gonna kill myself, but when they have sacrificial suicide, but it's like, I'm gonna, Satan is Lord, blah blah blah. They kind of, it's almost just like really powerfully atheistic lyrics.
Right. Well, that's like all Steve, like, so
Yeah.
Steve just, I don't get me wrong. I mark for Glenn Benton all day long, all day long. I would love to hang out with that dude for just one day. Like I've met him at some shows and stuff like that, but I would love to like just hang out with the guy for like a day, But Steve, I think a lot of people in the know understand like how much he's contributed to Deicide, but I think a lot of people who aren't really like nerdy like us don't really understand. They think it's all Glenn Benton, but like Steve Asheim like plays the guitars, he plays the drums, he writes the lyrics.
Yeah.
He's so like, instrumental in that band. Like, I mean,
he's an incredible musician, and I think a lot of people, when they think of Steve, unfortunately, they think of that fucking terrible video that he did for Scars of the Crucifix, where they show him at his house and he's showing off all of his guns.
All his guns, right, yeah.
But I mean,
that was when they didn't interview the Hoffman brothers on that one too.
Yeah, well, because it was the last, Scars of the Crucifix was the last album that where the Hoffman brothers were on. And it was interesting. I interviewed Steve twice. I interviewed him once around Scars of the Crucifix and once when Stench of Redemption came out.
Okay.
And I mean, he had nothing good to say about the Hoffman brothers. I want to show you something, actually.
Yeah, go ahead.
Anybody that is watching this on YouTube will be able to see it also. My 28th birthday, looking like a fucking asshole, with my clean shaven face.
There is no fucking
and
way
my little suit with Steve. Yeah, that's me. So I was working for a very, very corporate company, and it was like the working hours was 8 in the morning till 7 at night. That I booked some time off to interview him for Chronicles of Chaos. And then when we were done, he's like, "So what are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, it's my birthday this evening." And he's like, "Hold on." Calls over the PR woman from Earache, says, "Right, cancel all of my interviews for the rest of the night. It's his birthday and we're going to get drunk." And then we just hung out in the Intrepid Fox and boozed for the rest of the evening.
How old were you when you
28, which is why I still have way more hair.
Oh my god, man.
And I've got such a baby face.
Oh, that's fucking amazing. I'm so happy you shared that.
Yeah. But yeah, what a fucking great dude. I've tried to get in contact with him for the podcast, actually, but it's next to impossible. I have, however, made contact with Chris Canella, one of their new guitarists.
Okay,
so
cool.
I'm going to have him on because it'll be interesting to hear what the experience has been like so far. I always get the impression Glenn is far more normal than folks necessarily think that he is, or than he kind of lets on when he's being interviewed.
I'll tell you a funny Glenn Benton story. So there used to be this club in Springfield, Virginia called Jack's Nightclub, and it was a famous club, like especially in the area that I grew up in, because they booked all the metal shows. Like anybody who was anybody in metal would come through this little tiny club, probably just to pick up a couple extra bucks and like get a couple free drinks on their way up to like Washington D.C. to play like the 930 Club or something like that. But all kinds of great shows came through there. A lot of good memories there. But there was this one tour. It was when Deicide was just released that album called To Hell with God. I think it's called.
Yeah.
To Hell with God. And they were on tour with Jungle Rot, and they got a night at Jack's, and whoever was doing the booking for that night had an opening band that was like popular in the area, but had nothing to do with Jungle Rot and Deicide. They were like a kind of like a slam, like metalcore band, right? Yeah. So this crowd that shows up to this show is like exactly what you expect. Like everyone was like the hair, like you can only see one eyeball because their hair is like coming like across their face like this, super tight skinny jeans, white shirts, bracelets, all kinds of stuff. And they just, they go and they watch their first band, like their favorite band. They're all doing that weird like windmill, like
they're fucking stupid kicking and all that bullshit.
Right. So anyway, they stick around though for the whole show. And so me and my buddies, we went to go see Deicide and Jungle Rot, but we're drinking like through Jungle Rot, and then comes like Deicide, like we want to go into the pit and start a ruckus. Well, no one other than me and my two friends are the ones that are like trying to start this mosh pit in front of Glenn Benton, and he was cool about it after the show. He was like, I saw you guys out there. But at the time, he was so pissed off that nobody was like moshing or like getting into it. He goes like this. He goes, what the hell happened? Did they hand out heroin before the show started? Like, and then they play their set, and then he goes, normally we play an encore, but fuck you guys. And he left. That was it. Didn't come back on stage. And I felt bad for them, because I mean, you don't want to fucking see that when you're like on stage, like just standing around like confused, like what this show is about. Like,
but that's the thing, man, with the windmilling and the kicking and all that bullshit. It ruins it for everybody. I saw the Acacia Strain probably about 10 years ago. And I fucking love that band. I don't really like deathcore, but I love Acacia Strain. And they were 2 songs in, and I said to my friend, if we don't leave right now, I'm going to get arrested before the end of this evening. Some little cunt is going to kick me in the face, and I'm going to fold his legs up and fucking thread them through his anus so that his feet come out of his eyes.
It's so strange. It's such a strange that makes me feel old, and I'm not even that like far removed from those bands and that scene, but like I just can't understand it. It just never made any sense to me whatsoever.
Moronic, mate. It's absolutely moronic. Like I've been at in a pit when Biohazard is playing and when Slayer is playing and stuff like that, and those are generally fun. The Biohazard pits are the most fun, but when people are kicking and punching, I mean, it's so stupid. And then they get really upset when if they hit you and then you smack them, then they get really annoyed. Like, how dare you do that? It's like, easily, fuck face. Where I come from, people hit me, they get hit back.
I guess it's just a case of us versus them in that aspect. You know what I mean? There's us and then there's them, like,
exactly.
Yeah.
But by the way, just side note, Jungle Rot has one of the coolest lyrics I've literally ever. There's a song on a record called Terror Regime called Carpet Bombing. The lyrics,
I know it, yeah.
Heavy bombardments, targets of convenience, civilian sector, population burned to death. And then right at the end, here come the bombs.
So great. They're heavy. They were a super heavy band. There's a lot of those bands that are not slept on, but like unfortunately they don't get their what would you call that? Like their acknowledgement, like
their dues.
Yeah, their dues, right?
Yeah.
Brutal Truth's one of them. Jungle
yeah.
of them. I mean, like those guys just like. All these kids like this slam gent stuff. It's like, man, just go to a Jungle Rot show or a Brutal Truth show. Like you'll hear some heavy fucking breakdowns if you want like some mind shattering like stuff. Like
I'd slam gent, all that sort of stuff. There's like the odd exception to it, but for the most part, it's not.
Yeah. That's how I feel too. I mean, in every genre, there's an outlier that like stands out amongst the rest. But I mean, what else? Like, how did you feel about like Entombed AD? Did you like that kind of stuff that came out?
It was all right. So for me, I kind of discovered Wolverine Blues, and then I worked my way in reverse. So I got Wolverine Blues, then I heard Clandestine, which to me was and still is. And I know LG is not on that record, but it still is the best Entombed record by. I mean, no small stretch.
Yeah.
And then I got into Left Hand Path, which was also great. Then To Ride, Shoot Straight, and Speak the Truth came out, and I fucking hated that album when it came out. Like to a point where I actually sold my Wolverine Blues CD because I thought it was such a load of shit. And I'm kind of sorry that I was sorry that I had done it years later when I actually gave the record a proper listen. And today I was listening to it again in the car when I was going to drop my daughter off.
It's not bad.
One thing that I thought about was, I think part of the reason why there was such a backlash against that record, and I think it's because that's why I felt the same way as well. They chose the absolute worst single to kind of introduce the album, which was "Damn Deal Done." I mean, it's one of the weakest songs on the album by far. And actually, on the rest of the record, there's some fantastic songs. I mean,
Yeah, man. The
Like This with
song
the Devil is fucking awesome. Somewhat
They is
Peculiar, Genius, as you say, fucking
they
brilliant.
fucking
The first track, the title track of the record, awesome.
right.
There's really really cool songs on that album that probably have more in common with Wolverine Blues, because they'd already started to kind of lay the foundation for moving in that death and roll, kind of blues influenced direction that they were going. But just, Damn Deal Done kind of sounded to me like, at the time, I know I come across like a bundle of joy
No,
right now, but I
no,
mean,
no,
it was
no, no,
much
not at
much
all.
worse when I was young. Like, anything that sounded remotely happy or like people could listen to it at a party was false to me, so I would
But
immediately reject it.
To Ride and Shoot Straight is a million times better than Same Difference.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's the only black mark on their discography, in my opinion. I mean, I don't even understand that album.
I got back into them again when Morningstar came out.
Morningstar is rad. I actually
Yeah.
like that. I mean, what's the Chief Rebel Angel? Like, when I saw Entombed, I can't remember what year it was, but it was at Maryland Death Fest, 2010, I think, maybe. They opened with that, and they just slayed. Like, it was a great concert. They were still Entombed at the time. I wasn't the Entombed AD, and I mean, like, but it's that was one thing I wanted to say too. Entombed has, I mean, most bands do, but Entombed has a really uncanny knack for like coming. Like, every album has a great opening track.
Yeah, I agree.
Every single one has this, like, I mean, and the rest of the album, say what you will about the rest of the albums, but like, I feel like every single album they've ever, even the Entombed AD, when they did that Back to the Front, that's I bought that album when it came out, and it's the first song's Kill to Live, and it's got this awesome riffs, like, and it just has a really cool feel. And I actually really liked that album because I really felt that they were kind of going back to, it was less of the bluesy, like, sludgy kind of stuff, and was more of a kind of a, not tech death metal band, but like a kind of a more intricate, like, death metal style that they were kind of reaching back into. Really enjoyed that album. I really did. I didn't keep up with them much after that album. I heard some tracks here and there, but I thought they were heading in a good direction when they did that.
Yeah, I liked Up Inferno, which came out in 2003, a lot. But I partly liked that because I saw them live on the Inferno tour, and I can't remember even why I went to that show. I think it was literally like I was on the guest list, and I kind of just I think I wanted to see the opening band, and then I figured, oh fuck it, I'll stay for them, and I loved it. I thought they were superb.
That album has like a interesting vocals on it as well. Like, I felt like it were kind of, don't take it the wrong way, but like a poppy kind of like direction for like some of the vocal style. It was more of a punk album in a lot of ways. I thought
more accessible.
Yeah, more accessible. Yeah. There's the what's that song called? That's Why I Became a Satanist song.
That's When I Became a Satanist.
When I Became a Satanist. Yeah. And it's there's like kind of some like not sing songy, because it's definitely not sing songy, but just some catchy like vocal hooks like in that song, and not knocking it at all. I actually really like that, but I just noticed that was a change in their sound a little bit, coming from Morningstar into Inferno.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. And then after that, I kind of just lost track of them. For the main reason being, I was getting more into black metal. Black metal was a lot more interesting to me, and still is, than most death metal that comes out.
Yeah, it is for me too. But I'm really happy that we did this thing, because like as I get older, I tend to not be as nerdy about music anymore. And I just go with my my favorites. And as you know, black metal is also like my favorite genre of metal at the moment as well. But it was really interesting to get back into it and like, oh yeah, that's right. It's still fucking awesome. I mean, like, just because I don't listen to it every day doesn't mean that I don't mark out for death metal. It's just, it just doesn't.
And the thing also though is you need to, no matter what your views on death metal, you need to appreciate the fact always, I think, that a lot of the badassness that are in a lot of modern black metal bands comes from death metal. Like if you speak to, like when I spoke to Jonathan from Selpst, he openly admits it. It's like, the really like menacing stuff that I write in Selpst, the influence comes from the bleeding. It doesn't come from mayhem. The mayhem stuff is more of the dark melody and the atmosphere. But, I would say in that regard, Left Hand Path and Clandestine and Wolverine Blues, are hugely influential, and they always will be. Mike and I spoke about it also. And I know he found Wolverine Blues very, very influential. And when I think about it, and I think about some of the moments, particularly on some of the earlier Tomb stuff, you can kind of hear that, but especially that sort of that groove and that slight sort of hint of blues coming into some of the riffs that Mike writes.
Yeah, and Mike's a comic book guy too, so he's going to mark out for any band that does an album about Wolverine.
Are you a comic book guy?
Not really. No, I never really got into that. I like books and stuff, but comic books I never really.
More of a porno mag guy.
Mostly jacking off, lots of cum everywhere. That was more my style.
I was big time into. I was bigly into comic books. I actually still have a collection in South Africa that I think if I had it valued now, it would be worth quite a bit because everything is in their dust covers, their backing boards, everything. But I've always only collected like really grim stuff, like Hellspawn, Violent Messiahs. Anything that was a bit on the darker side of things.
I totally get it. It's the same with there's just so many things to be passionate about, and there's so little time, So but I totally understand it. Like I love dark art. I still am, I suppose, big fan of guys like Geiger and just. Anything that's like dark, I'm just really into, of course, but comic books, I guess just really wasn't accessible where I grew up at. And then at a certain point, like I was just interested in other things, so yeah.
How come it wasn't accessible where you grew up at?
I read some like Archie comics and stuff like that. Well,
it sounds to me like the only thing that you would have read where you were Jesus comics.
No, it wasn't that bad. But
Danny discovers that premarital sex is wrong and an affront to God.
No, it wasn't that bad. But Northern Virginia, when I grew up, was a place of there was some Bible vet stuff there as well. But a lot of just conservatism, like a lot of old school people and old school buildings, and you just didn't have. I remember the first time that a record shop opened there. I was there every single day, when they had a record shop. But usually you'd have to go somewhere else, So you'd go up to Fairfax, or you would go to Leesburg, or you'd go to DC or something like that if you wanted to find really cool, But I wasn't able to do that until I was around my mid-teens. Before, when I was a kid, you're just kind of stuck in this small town, and you're just kind of at the mercy of whatever the stores have, and most of the time they didn't have anything good, be like I said, Archie and Annie comics, and then they'd have maybe a Far Side comic over here, and then some, a wrestling magazine, and that was about it, in a lot of the small stores and stuff like that. So growing up, it was more just about music. I had a lot of access to music because of my pops, and so I would just watch concert footage that he had on VHS, or listen to music that they had on cassette tape, and that was pretty much what consumed me. And then my grandparents, they're real country, they live out in the no man's land, more or less, and they have this really traditional way of living, but they're really into music. So my grandfather got me a guitar and taught me how to play bluegrass music first. And that was my first introduction into the music world, was picking up the guitar and just playing Amazing Grace, G, C, D over and over again in a 4/4 timing, alternating bass thing, and learn how to do that for a long time. And then, but yeah, my dad was really into the Jimi Hendrix and Stevie Ray Vaughan, and he liked the Clash and the Dead Kennedys too. So I got to listen to a wide array of music. And I remember what made me want to be a musician though was there's this VHS tape my dad had called "Stop Making Sense." It's by the band called Talking Heads, and it's the whole performance of this concert, "Stop Making Sense." And I would watch that weekly, maybe daily sometimes. I just loved it. Like, it was just this crazy show. Like, it starts off with David Byrne coming out with just the stage isn't like, it's completely in shambles. Like, there's ladders and like drapes hanging down. Like, it's a fucked up stage. He comes out with a boombox and puts a cassette tape in the boombox and starts playing Psycho Killer on an acoustic guitar. And by the end of the concert, the stage is completely finished. There's a full band on there. There's lights and everything. And it's like, it was just a crazy performance. And I just remember that was what, made me love music, was frontmen and performance and showmanship and stuff like that. So I guess that's also why I'm marked for like punk music and like death metal music and black metal music, because it's all that showmanship, And then when the guys do it well, like Attila or LG or anybody like that, like that, those guys really inspire me to like continue on, every time I go to like Cannibal Corpse.
That's something that Mike and I spoke about is, with a band like Entombed, LG could be that animated, larger than life personality on stage. Whereas, I feel with a lot of the tech death bands, which I don't like, it feels like I'm a fly on a wall at their band rehearsal when I see them live, because they're all over the fretboard, and the drummer is doing insane shit, and technically speaking what they're doing is incredible, but it does nothing for me, because if the sound sucks, firstly in the venue, you can't hear jack shit. Secondly, right, it's too technically intense for them to be doing crazy stuff on stage. And I want that on stage. I'm not happy if I don't have that on stage. You mentioned Deicide before, the very hopefully infamous When London Burns DVD that they brought out. I was at that show. It was one of the best death metal. Yeah.
That's one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite live performances.
Well, yeah. So I was right off camera.
Oh,
I mean,
really?
I was almost right in front, and I remember being in the queue, and this was still in the days when you got a couple of beers and you queued up and waited. I remember Glenn walking down the line with everyone queuing, and he had this bottle of Jack Daniels in his hand, and people were so stunned that he was doing it that no one went up to him and said hello. He just walked past and he just had this grin on his face, and I was like, oh my God, that's Glenn Benton, and everyone down the line was saying the same thing. And obviously he comes up. If you've watched the show, he's abusive from the get go. He's like,
I love it.
London,
broad daylight, and it's fire everywhere.
Of fish and chips and big tits. It's like, I mean, great, I love that. I have to have that at a show, or I feel shortchanged.
Yeah, it's a danger thing. You know what I mean? Like, and Deicide is one of the only bands that can like stand on stage and not really be that animated, but still give you that like sense of danger. Cannibal Corpse is the same way. I was listening to your last podcast with when you were talking about best pits you ever been in. 2 episodes ago, I think, maybe now. I saw Cannibal Corpse one time when they had just came out with The Wretched Spawn, and they hadn't played and this was, I think MySpace was out, but like there wasn't really like YouTube kind of sucked, and there wasn't really file sharing going on, so no one had heard the song Festering in the Crypt, and they played Festering in the Crypt somewhere towards the end of the show, and this crowd didn't mosh, like it wasn't like throwing fisticuffs. It was just like a mass like thing of movement. Like you were just being compressed like on your front and then on your back, like you couldn't breathe. And the whole crowd was just swaying to this like this song, And I mean, if you look at that band like from a bird's eye view, it's just like a bunch of guys standing on stage, but like, Corpse Grinder and like just the whole like they have this dark evilness about them that just really encapsulates you. I don't know what they're like these days, but that was one of the coolest fucking shows, man. But then, on the flip side, you have bands like the Dillinger Escape Plan, and like those motherfuckers, they can be technical, but they can also like kick your face in too.
But yeah, I mean, it's because those guys are supreme musicians. I've seen them twice, and
I saw them once, and that's fucking awesome. Yeah.
Mind blowing.
Yeah.
The last time I saw Cannibal Corpse was on the Wretched Spawn tour, and I have a when I was kind of hinting at it earlier, but giving someone in the pit a receipt, I was almost right at the front, and this guy with like military steel toe boots had been stage diving all fucking night, and every single time he stage dived, he would kind of come over the stage and then clock me on the side of the head with his boots, and I was getting more and more pissed off. And probably about the 8th or the 9th time this happened, he's standing on stage and he looks me in the eye, and he makes this weird gesture, like, he's obviously fucking drunk out of his mind. He's holding his hands like, oh, please, please, please catch me. And I was like, no, not
happening. You're gonna land
not again. So he does it anytime. So as he jumps, I time it and I fucking clock him in the face as he's coming down, like, clock him in the face. He hits the ground like right next to me, and the security guard doesn't even say anything to me. He's laughing his head off because he would have seen all night. Like, I mean, I was pretty chilled out all night. I'm, having a good time watching the band, and this fucking moron just keeps on doing it and keeps on doing it. But yeah. So round 9 was the round that he lost.
That same show, I was talking about the Cannibal Corpse show that we went to. So it was me and my best friend Tom. Tom, he used to drum for Merc Rider. I mentioned him the other time.
Oh, yeah.
So we were at this show together, and I don't know when this was. It might have been like 2007, maybe 2006. But we're young, but we, that night it was Macabre, Hypocrisy. Exhumed was supposed to play, but Exhumed didn't make it down, and Vile, and then Cannibal Corpse, all in this club. And so after Hypocrisy, I think it was Hypocrisy that opened for Cannibal. Hypocrisy finishes, and they go off. And at the time, it was okay at this club. You can go out, smoke your cigarettes, come back in, and stuff. So you always knew you could make your way to the front after a band got off, because everyone would be like, I need a beer, I need a cigarette. And so me and Tom went forward, and we just waited. We held our piss. We didn't need to take a cigarette. We didn't buy any kind of beer or whatever. And we're holding on to this railing because we want to be like this, when it comes to seeing Cannibal Corpse. And so we get to the crowd comes back, the show starts, and somebody so Tom's here. So we're just shoulder to shoulder, and somebody takes their hand and just puts it between us and grabs the railing.
Oh yeah.
And they're trying to muscle their way,
the old rail grab.
Right? Yeah. So Tom, I hope he doesn't mind me telling this story, but he starts taking his elbow and he just starts slamming the guy's fucking hand with his elbow until the guy didn't you think 1 or 2 of those would be enough for you to he took maybe 20 of those before he finally let off of the railing and be yeah, you're back there, man. We've been sitting here for 15, 20 minutes waiting for this to start, but that was just crazy, stupid memory.
Dude,
I just popped in my
head. I've got several of those stories. It's unfortunately sometimes people at shows need a receipt. That's the only way to deal with it.
Yeah, sometimes, man.
But I remember at Slayer as well. I was at the show where they played Rain and Blood as an encore, and it was the same deal. This guy tries to shove in front of me, and eventually it's I shouted him. I was like, dude, you're not going to get in front of me. I've literally been suffering through all the shit open bands so that I can be at the front of the stage. I'm holding onto the railing. I'm not going to let you get in front of me. You're taller than me. That's the worst. It's stand behind me, you dumb fuck.
Wouldn't even hinder him.
And then and eventually he needed to get foot sweep, mate. Foot sweeped and got a kicking. And the same deal with the security guards. They didn't give a shit because
Slayer's like that though, man. Slayer makes people crazy. I don't even know it is. Every single time I've seen Slayer, it's the gnarliest pit you can imagine. It's pure violence. It's just amazing. I saw them on the farewell tour with Behemoth, but just a year, I think, before they announced the farewell tour, they did this festival in Sacramento, California called the Aftershock Festival.
Yeah.
It's run by Rockstar Energy Drink. And they were playing right after Anthrax. So Anthrax played, which is a funny story too. My friend flicked off Joey Belladonna, and Joey Belladonna picked him out of the crowd and flipped him off as well. And it was all good. And we were just fucking up. We were just drunk and being stupid, but no bad blood. But then right after Anthrax gets off stage, Slayer comes on, and the pit just turned into bikers. It wasn't even the same people in the pit anymore. Like, just it went from like people my size and smaller to dudes twice my size, like, and they just filled in the pit. And me being like, you know, just high on adrenaline and alcohol and stuff like that, you know, getting in the pit and moshing to, I think they opened with Angel of Death, which would be, you know, probably right to say that. And I just remember looking across the pit, and this guy, he must have been 350 pounds, maybe 400 pounds. And him and I just like line up eyes, and we just run together. And
Yeah.
right about like the 0.05 second mark before I hit this guy, I realized I'm gonna get destroyed. So I put my hand up and I broke my fucking pinky because I like caught my hand like super weird. So like when
shit.
But here's the best part. So they had to put me in after that happened, I still watched the rest of the show. After that, we went to the medic tent, and they like put this like metal splints around my finger, and so it was like really easy to do the devil horns because I had this like metal wrapping around the finger. Yeah, man. But every single time I've been in a Slayer pit, it's always been just like someone gets hurt.
I agree with you though. They do have some fucking stupid fans. Did you see? I mean, you would have seen it, but when way back when Divine Intervention came out, and they had that moron who's, you know, cut Slayer into his arm, and then he sets it on fire.
Oh,
and then he's like so proud. It's like, wow, biggest moment of my life. I always, even at the age of 15, I thought that was the dumbest shit that I'd ever seen in my life.
I don't get it. It's the same. They're like, okay, so are Marilyn Manson fans also Slayer fans? Like, I don't get like the whole carving the Slayer thing, and like,
it's ridiculous. By the way, what are your thoughts on old Marilyn McManson and all of his charges?
It's not
and all of
surprising
his
to me that it's not surprising to me. No, I saw him also at a place called Vina Robles in Paso Robles, California. And I can't remember who he was playing with, but he was the headlining act. And he was so fucking drunk. It was an absolute like disgrace. I wouldn't have even gone on stage. I would have just given people their money back just to save my own self-image. Like, I don't know why you would have that kind of confidence to go out when you're literally like that shit face. Like, he tried to do like the whole, you know, I saw him back when Hollywood came out. I think it was Hollywood. And he was on at Ozfest, and he did a fantastic show. It was a really fucking amazing show. I mean, just everything was tight. Everything was together. The stage performance was great. Like, it was a good show. You know, then I saw him at this Paso Robles thing, and he tried to do the whole Antichrist Superstar thing where he had the podium out with all the microphones, and he ended up like falling on the podium, like kind of like slapping all the microphones off, and he was just kind of hanging there, and like he crawled around on stage, and like, it was just kind of disappointing, really, you know. And so obviously that guy's got some fucking demons, and it doesn't surprise me that he's a fucking weird pervert guy too. Like, I mean,
what I found bizarre is the amount of people that came to his defense, and openly, and particularly in the culture in which we live right now, you know, would post on social media, you know, Rachel Evan Wood, or whatever her name is, you know, she should have known that he was like this. You don't date the god of darkness and not expect some weird shit.
No. He's not the god of darkness. He's just a fucking weird dude from Florida.
I was just about to say, it's like, okay, so because you date someone who's a bit eccentric, you should expect to get sexually abused? It's just the most bizarre fucking reasoning I've ever heard of in my life.
It's the same kind of shit that says, like, you know, a woman can't walk down the street in the middle of the night in a skirt because she's asking for it, you know? I mean, but I will say this, though. I mean, you have to be aware of your surroundings, because if you find yourself in a bad situation, you should like be able to acknowledge that you're in a bad situation and get yourself out of there. If I walk into like a bad neighborhood and somewhere in fucking London, I'm not going to like walk around more. Like, you know, I'll be like, no, I think this is not the alleyway I need to walk down at fucking 2 o'clock in the morning, you know? So
you're a man's man, mate. You walk around and you say, I welcome him. I welcome attackers.
Yeah, but like, I'm just saying, that's what I'm saying. It's like, you know, like, I'm sure there was some red flags with that guy. I'm not defending his actions. I'm just saying it's the same all the way around. But like, I mean, the guy's clearly fucking disturbed. If I can see that, and I don't even live with him, or I'm not in his personal world, I'm sure there was some red flags. Like maybe this.
I know what you mean.
Fucking guy to like stick around
I think
with.
I think I said it on my on my news section when I spoke about it the first time. I was like, look, for my daughter, I would say you need to have your fucking head read if you're going to hang around with that dickhead. But so I do agree with you there. I do, I think people need to be a little smarter about it. But then, like I said, at the same time,
it doesn't give him an excuse to do what he did.
No, not a chance.
Absolutely not. No.
But I mean, it sounds now like he's under investigation by the FBI. They're probably clearing out the cell right next to Weinstein for him to to go join in.
I read his book, the Long Dark Road Out of Hell. I read that a long time ago, and I mean, he was talking about crazy shit back then, man. I mean, he's not, I mean, for better or for worse. I mean, we like to glorify these like crazy characters and stuff like that, but in actuality, if you look at it in like an objective way, like this person is not all there in the head, and probably needs like a little bit of fucking therapy, maybe some help. You know what I mean? Like,
he needs some therapy.
right to here, right?
Well, the thing that I kind of kept coming back to throughout this business is this crazy idea that some of the metal press have, the main metal press, like the fucking idiots that write for Metal Hammer and stuff like that,
or Metal Injection, or fucking
they always hold Marilyn Manson up as this like really misunderstood genius, and actually he's a super intelligent guy because watch what he said on the Michael Moore documentary. It's like, and I always thought to myself like that to have a couple of sound bites with a guy stating the bleeding obvious, and now all of a sudden because he agreed with your point, he's this brilliant man. I mean, it just shows how fucking disconnected from reality those idiots are as well.
Look, man, I have a lot of umbrage with Metal Injection, and I want to say this because I really was offended by this. Now I don't want to call out the young man who was the interviewer, that guy Gruhamid, because he's a young kid, and I think he. I'm not going to say anything of what I think about him as a human being, but I think he's young, and I think he got put up to a lot of stuff that maybe he will regret later on in life. But I watched an interview with him one time with Alexi Leho, and he asked Alexi Leho, how much do you drink on a daily basis? And then had a bag next to him with a bunch of empty bottles of liquor and started pulling them out and putting them on a table, Now we all know now what, Alexi Leho is dead, and it was absolutely a result of his, excessiveness that he lived throughout his life. And I just thought that was really that's really low brow kind of like shit,
and also you don't know, I think, when you go into a situation like that. I mean, I'm always careful about things like that. If I don't know somebody, I'll generally always ask them beforehand, listen, is there anything you don't want me to talk about? Because the way that my conversations go, they go into all sorts of crazy directions, but I don't want to talk about something that's sensitive to somebody, But
I mean, who would do that anyway, though? Like, if you said,
I know.
I would let me be like, how much meth do you do? Do you do this much? Or do you do this much? Like, who fucking does that? Who fucking does that? You know
it's I mean? I noticed those teeth are rotten. How much meth?
It's low brow. It's low hanging fruit. It's not good journalism. It's not good representation of metal. They always take sides on that fucking website all the time. They fucking want to demonize all kinds of black metal bands all the time, but then they'll fucking exonerate I mean, I don't hate Devin Townsend, but they're always talking about Devin Townsend every day. It's like, but they don't do good coverage. They're not a good.
I know what you mean. I mean, the Metal Injection isn't as bad as Metal Sucks, but they fucking shit all the same.
Well, they're one and the same, aren't they? Aren't they both affiliated together?
I don't know.
I think they are.
Affiliated with the Democrat wing of rock.
Music. Right. That's the other shit too. You always do on your news stuff, and I'm so happy that you do it on your news segment. Motherfucker, why do we give a fuck of what Paul Stanley thinks or what fucking Tommy Lee thinks?
I agree.
It's like Will Smith giving fucking parent advice. Okay, Mr.
Will Smith giving advice on how to be a husband. Yeah. Let your wife go if she needs to. If she needs to take a lover, let her go.
Mr. $100 billion wants to tell me, well, not me, I don't have kids, but tell you how to raise your kids. It's like, oh, why don't you just shut the fuck up, man?
I agree.
Enjoy your fucking money and leave us alone, man.
I agree, and this is the thing. It's like it's not a case of you don't want people to have an opinion. I'm fine with people having opinions, but as far as I'm concerned, if you're gonna air an opinion in public, then expect to be given shit about it.
Of course.
Like it's one thing for somebody to say, well, I think this, but all of those guys like Dee Snider, Corey Taylor, Paul Stanley, Tommy Lee, they all complain when people take them on about what they've said. All of them.
Listen,
like
you
I won't have my voice silenced. It's like,
well, like you were saying about getting a receipt, man. Like, look, you're 100% free to say whatever the fuck you want to say.
Yeah.
If you get clocked in the face because of it, that's a direct result, because you can't. The buck doesn't just stop when you start spouting a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, because it doesn't end there. You know, if you set it off, and someone else decides that they want to close it down, like, you know, that's the consequences of your actions for saying whatever the fuck you say.
I was about to say, you know what they say: talk shit, get hit.
Right. right.
Well, you know, so with the cancel culture malarkey, and I'm kind of in two minds on cancel culture. Like something like Marilyn Manson, I think he's getting his just desserts. Fuck him.
Yeah.
You know, when somebody says something that someone doesn't agree with, and then all of a sudden their career is over, that's somewhat different. But I'm very surprised that the mobs have yet to come for the likes of Tommy Lee or, you know, somebody like that. You know, if you read the dirt, I mean, the stuff those guys did was absolutely fucked up.
I mean, it might be a matter of time, or it might just be that's literally how insignificant they are nowadays. You know, I mean, obviously these guys are like they're holding on by a thread, because I mean, Motley Crue's not doing any like music right now, and like, you know what I mean, like these guys they have to stay relevant in some way, one way or another, in order to, like, you know, draw up, you know, buzz about them so they can keep their career going, you know. But they've gotten to the point where, like, that's what they've been reduced to, you know. Like, I mean, and in a lot of ways it's very sad and pathetic, and I mean, I don't feel sorry for them in any way, but
No.
but I do see what's going on. I mean, who gives a fuck about Tommy Lee? I mean, like, yeah, he's a fucking, just watch what's the God damn it, I can't think of the documentary. The documentary with Ozzy Osbourne and like the Downfall of Human Society. That's not what it's called.
Decline of Western Civilization.
Yeah. Just watch that, and just watch Tommy Lee in that for a little while. Or you know, I mean, they're just they're all a bunch of womanizing, like, you know, asshole fucking drug out fucking people, you know. And I'm not talking shit on like anybody who is listening that like has problems with any of that kind of stuff, but these people are on another level.
These people use their personal problems as a license to behave like fuckfaces.
Exactly,
then they go, we feel really sorry, but by the way, we're going to release a book about it where we kind of brag about it, but not brag at the same time.
Right.
But it's going to also make us millions of dollars, because our music can't make that for us anymore. If you're gonna ride on like something like that while other people are suffering with it, you're already a fucking piece of shit. And then on top of that, if like you're gonna, you know, pretend that you never did anything like this and not address anything like that, like, you know, that you were fucking, you know, a dog of a human being for a long time, and then like all of a sudden have like riding some like horse of like, you know, self-righteousness, and then, you know, you have some political fucking thing to say. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. You know, I totally agree. Like Al Jorgensen from Ministry, great example. I'm a massive fan of Ministry's music, but, you know, having read his book, having followed most of his career, when he starts to try and tell me about who to vote for and stuff like that, it's like, shut the fuck up, old man.
No,
another face tattoo.
Yeah, exactly. He pierced his last brain cell when he went through his eyebrow. Like,
yeah. All right. Listen, hold on for 2 seconds. I just want to go check the food. I'll be back in a second.
Can you pause this? Because actually, you need to take a piss too.
I'll just keep it. We'll just leave it recording. I'll delete all the stuff. So I'll be back in like 5 minutes.
Sounds good.
All right.
I love that shirt, by the way. That's a good shirt.
Right. Well, the shirt.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Oh yeah. What an album as well.
It's probably my favorite. I have it on double LP, and I don't have too many black metal albums on LP, but I made sure to get that one. That's one of my favorites.
I mean, like, as far as black metal is concerned, there's there's very few songs that to me capture the spirit of black metal, especially 90s black metal, like Dunkelheit. I think Dunkelheit's one of the most incredible things that I've ever heard in my life. It's just like everything that's great about black metal is kind of captured in that song for me.
What was your first introduction to black metal?
To black metal, I'm trying to think now. Battles in the North. And it was the easiest thing to probably transition into because I was so into death metal at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember Phil Anselmo was talking about like his favorite albums of the year, and I was still, I still am a big Pantera fan, but and he was saying that Battles in the North was his favorite album of the year, and I just remember hearing the tape and like hearing the first track and being just blown away, and then that just opened the floodgates. I started ordering as much stuff as I could possibly find, like Ceremony of Opposites, Under the Moon Spell. I'm trying to think what it was. In the Nightside Eclipse. Then we got probably about 5 or 6 months after that we got Philosophem. It just like I said, it just kind of built up and built up and built up from there.
Yeah, of course. I think, I mean, if I'm completely honest, I think the first black metal-ish band I heard was Dimmu Borgir, and then that was what got me into like this whole new sound of music that I'd never heard before. Yeah. And then that's when I started working also like kind of backwards, like you did with Wolverine Blues. Like so what's this music? And like, okay, what do I need to know about this? And then so I worked back into Burzum, Dark Throne. Immortal was one of my favorites too. The first Immortal I got was Damned in Black, and like, oh man, like just like such a good. One of my favorite albums of all time is
Damned in Black. It wasn't very well received when it came out either, because people were so high off the back of At the Heart of Winter.
Yeah, that's great too. It's great,
Damned in Black, I think, was for most people a bit of a letdown. For me, actually, as well, when it first came out, because I loved Battles in the North, and Blizzard Beast came out, and I thought that was okay. Then At the Heart of Winter came out, and it was like, fucking hell, this is like total, 5 steps up from where they had been.
I think Abbott is also one of my favorite like frontmen as well, musicians as well. Like, I mean, I know he's struggled a little bit himself and kind of fallen off after the whole Immortal breakup and everything. But I hold him in very high regard as well. I've seen him several times. Actually, right before Corona lockdown here in Sweden, we saw Immortal with 1349 and Ultimas, and it was a fantastic show, and he did a really good job. So it wasn't a letdown by any means, but I've just always been a big fan of them. I just like the style, the sound and the style. Like, I mean, all the goofy stuff, you can take it or leave it or whatever, but I really love the sound of them.
I'll show you another photo. So here's me hanging out with Abath.
Yeah, there you go.
When this was when I came out. And again, I was probably 27, 28 years old, which is why I look like such a white stain. I have the suit on as well because I came straight from the office. Lots more hair.
What's the Japanese for this? Isn't it gaijin or something like that? When you're like a worker and like you just like as soon as you leave work you go to a bar and then
something like that. Yeah. But yeah, so here I was with Abath. Very cool guy. Although that night was, I'm gonna break out another photo for you. Yeah, just ignore all the other photos. The best part of that night was there. So nice. in the corner, this guy sitting as I'm talking to Abath, and I was like, I realized, oh my god, I know who that is. It's Phil Anselmo. And I was like, went up to him. I was like, man, Phil, just want to let you know I'm massive fan of everything that you do. So cool to meet you. Blah blah blah. I've got tickets for Down. They were playing a couple of nights after that, and he was like, God bless you, brother. Thank you very much. And I was like,
that's great.
Just the fucking coolest guy. Like everything that I had wished for when I met him, because this was a guy that was on my wall for most of my teenage life. He was just a total badass.
I got to see Dimmu once. There was a tour that came through. It was called the American Apostasy Tour, and it was Behemoth and Dimmu Borgir, and like they had the Apostasy was Behemoth's album, and I don't know what Demu's album was at the time. It was before that Abracadabra stuff, so they were probably still doing
It would have been
In Sorti Diaboli, or it
yeah.
was.
Yeah, it would have been
I think
in Sorte
no, I think at
Diaboli.
that time. Oh, maybe you're right. Yeah, I think at that time it might have still been Death Cult Armageddon, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
Either way, at this point in my life, I was a big fan of Demu still, but I also marked really hard for Old Man's Child, and I was so dead set on like, just please. So this was at the 930 Club in Washington D.C., and it's not as easy to run into people because their VIP sections like separated from like the rest of the crowd, and there's no parking area. But sometimes the tour buses will park on the street, and it just so happened that night they did, and I got to hang out with Tom Rune Anderson, Galder, and like he signed a T-shirt that I had, and like it was like, and he was just the coolest, nicest fucking guy. I mean, like that was a big. I remember when I was a kid, like that was a real big deal for me, you know. Yeah, you know, that was something I was thinking about while I was taking a piss. I wanted to say this, like, you know, I think it's nice that we can sit here and talk about and remember LG and everything, and then talk about like, you know, what you know, all that, you know, did for us as far as when we were young and stuff. But I think it's really important to like just hammer into people's heads that, you know, hopefully Corona will, you know, lighten up and the restrictions will lighten up and we will have shows again. And I think it's really important to encourage every single person, like, just go back to shows and just, you know, don't think like, oh, I can't really afford it or I can't really do it. Like, you didn't care about that shit when you were a kid. You care about it more now, you know, when you're a responsible adult or whatever. But then when a motherfucker dies like this, you know, well, that's it. You know, it's all over with.
Yeah, and you know, so this was the one thing I was going to say to you. You know, that I think is important to reflect on in a situation like this. I mean, LG was only 49 years old. I'm 41.
Right.
You know, and the guy died. Okay, so obviously he was on the road a lot, hard living, smoked, drank. You know, he died of bile duct cancer, which is caused by excessive alcohol use. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you know, when the clock strikes for people, there's a lot of folks that I know of who are super healthy, haven't done anything in their lives to merit getting sick or anything like that. You know, and like I said, when your time comes, it's over. And especially the age that I'm at now, I know a guy that I went to school with who, you know, he was in my class, died of a heart attack last year. Just literally, you know, guys, I'm a year younger than everyone in my class because I got advanced ahead a year. So I ended up being with older people. But my, what's the name? You know, this guy was in class with me. He was 42 years old, had a young family, dropped down dead. I know another guy who died of a bleeding stomach ulcer. And again, young family. If you go on his social media, you know, he's posting shit 2 days before it happened. Like everything was coup d'etat, 46 years old, dead. So I think it's very important, you know, whether it's appreciating musicians while they're still around, but also appreciating your friends and appreciating the people close to you.
Absolutely.
You do not know when the time is going to come for that person.
Yeah. I mean, and I mean, unfortunately, right now, a lot of people don't have that ability, you know, depending on where they live. Of course, you know, with the restrictions and lockdowns and shit like that. But when things do lighten up, yeah, it's very important, I think, to cherish those times we have with friends. Like, you know, even just the conversation like you and me, like having right now, like it's so important to continue doing this kind of stuff and not let, you know, all the craziness in the world, like, you know, ruin that, you know, and steal your desire, you know, to go out and still do these kind of things, you know, like, because it is really important, you know. I mean, you know, we talk on LG, but you know, there's going to be a lot of kids that never will have ever had the opportunity to see that guy, you know, or David Bowie or Lemmy or whoever.
Pete Steele.
Yeah, Pete Steele, right, you know, and if you're, you know, if you're just a little bit, like, if you have a little bit of a desire to like do something like that, I highly recommend everybody just go and do something like that, because you never know how cool it could be. You could be sitting like in your suit at a bar hanging out with Steve Estheim, or like you could get on a tour bus and, you know, get to talk with Galder or like anybody, you know. You don't know, you know, just, but you'll never, you know, it'll always be that like what if you never try it, never do it, and
Yeah.
I mean, right now I'm kind of waxing a little bit at the moment, but like, I do miss it quite a lot. And I know how important it is to me to like, have that sort of thing in my life. And when you see people like that, so young and like you said, you just never really know it. It makes me think more about the importance of like every single moment that you have and trying and doing everything that you should, try and do while you're alive,
Yeah.
instead
Yeah.
of just,
I think, and the importance of it, I think, has become even more more underlined in the last couple of probably the last 12 to 24 months. Shows. It's one of the few things that's still a uniting force. Everybody who's at the show, who's enjoying themselves, when you see a great band, nobody is pausing to think, I wonder who the guy next to me voted for. I wonder if I wonder if the guy next to me supports Meghan Markle and Harry, or whether they support the royal family. All of the divisive bullshit in the world, it all gets cast aside for that 2 hours or whatever that you're at that show.
I saw
the 2 hours that you see that comedian or you're watching that great movie, which is why I hate the infiltration of that crap into the arts as much as I do, because again, most of my great friendships stemmed from a love of music and a shared interest in the same bands, the same type of movies, and the same type of books and things like that.
Right, and
it all comes from that.
Yeah, and
when
go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say. So when there's this move from people to take these really vehement sides and like everyone who voted a certain way or thinks a certain way is not my fan, fuck them. It's like you just think to yourself, it's like, dude, what do you realize that the long-term impact of that way of thinking is war? I mean, there's no two ways about it. When a society splits to such a point that two sides want nothing to do with each other and refuse to find any kind of middle ground, it's war. That's the only end result of that.
Well, not to mention too, like, I mean, I wanted to say another thing, but to comment on that too, like when you start infiltrating the arts, I mean, you affect a lot of people, and a majority of those people that you affect are children. I mean, if we aren't allowed to explore, art and find ourselves, because it's all limited, then on some level you're robbing, children of the human experience that we all like, had the luxury of having. I mean, I'm not old, but I'm 33 and I've lived a pretty crazy life, and I'm not really worried about myself so much, but I do see things not being, and maybe it's not bad, but they're not going to be the same for the the next generations to come and stuff like that, because so much of the life that we live at these moments, with social media and with all the polarization of like people taking sides, is sort of just they're growing up in that. We kind of see the hypocrisy in it because we saw it happening, but they grow up, and so they're gonna absorb it as the norm, and through that, it's gonna, in a way, I think it's gonna steal them, of their innocence, and then like, and their, just that, it's all right to, listen to black metal or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I mean, it was such a, for me personally, like, I mean, if I didn't have music and art, like, I would have been a very lost person. And it really helped me out throughout my life, questions of uncertainty and pondering what the world is and all this kind of stuff. And music played an integral role in my development, for better or for worse, but, I don't think that we benefit by censoring art.
I agree, and I don't think we benefit by taking art to a place where, like I said, it excludes groups of people over broad ideas that, in the grand scheme of things, in my opinion, doesn't mean a whole lot.
Doesn't mean jack. I mean, you're only here, if you're lucky, you're only here for 80, 90 years. I mean. That little, it doesn't mean jack. It's just it's a blip.
And it's like I've said as well. If you let politics, get you to a point where you're, rejecting your family members and not speaking to friends anymore, it's like, dude, do you not understand? Like, the politicians don't give two shits about you. They don't care about, your friendships. They don't care about your well-being. They don't care about, what happens to you in your life. They care about numbers being voted in and keeping the money train flowing wherever they sit.
We say in the states, like, they wouldn't piss on you if you were on fire.
Yeah,
Like, that's how low
exactly.
like, yeah.
So, do you think that those people are going to be around when you suddenly get cancer, or something happens to you, and God forbid someone needs to take care of your family in your absence? Then the politician isn't going to go, "Well, I'll donate some of my money to help out Evan or to help out Jackie." Not a fucking chance. It's going to be that
No way.
friend that you told to fuck off because you heard that once upon a time he wore a MAGA hat. It's and again, like I said, at some point people need to figure out that they need to find a middle ground with people around them, because if they don't, we're on a very, very dark path. And I
think it's the whole horseshoe theory thing too. It's like, a horseshoe, like you have horses, like the peaks of the horseshoe are closer to each other than they are apart from each other,
Yeah.
So you have extremist idealism, like, if these people could just take a moment to like reflect, they're scarily more similar than they are apart, and like, I don't really, I guess, I mean, it's a multitude of different things that like is dividing people and blinding people, but in all actuality, I mean, we're all kind of in it together, other than the rich and famous and the politics, of course, but normal people are really all in this together, and until people just sort of like, it's all right to like just listen to somebody else talk. It's all right to say, what, I was wrong, you were right. It's all right to do these kind of things. I mean, it takes more pride and strength and stress on your body to like, hold up something that maybe you don't really feel like 100% about. It's so freeing and so much more like opening to like just life in general and society and like relationships. If you can just like get off your fucking high horse for a little bit, and like everybody can just be like, all right, look, I'm wrong, you're wrong, let's talk, let's figure it. You know what I mean? Like, it's like a relationship, like I don't know how human beings have gotten this far in life, in the existence of life, and still fail to like, understand this very simple like point.
Well,
like,
I think that coming back kind of full circle to what we spoke about a few minutes ago around considering or contemplating your mortality, I think it's people that don't do that, that think this way and that drive this way of thinking. I think genuinely it's people that don't take enough time to stop and think. In 10 years, I could be dead, or 5 years, I could be dead. And, if I'm lucky, I'm going to hit 80. I'm X number of years off from that time. And then all of this shit's going to be over. What do I leave behind? Will I have added something positive to the people that were around me, or would I have been a divisive old cunt who, tore families apart or told my friends to fuck off or whatever the case may be because they disagreed with me?
I agree and I disagree with that, but I only disagree with it because I think that thought enters into everybody's head at some point in time. I mean, I'm sure most people have gone to a funeral, or most people have gotten news that somebody close to them has died, and I think the thought enters the head. But the thing that I don't understand that's going on is like, why doesn't that thing stick? Like, why is it just a fleeting memory instead of being something that like, should be very profound in your development and your evolution as a human being? Instead, it kind of, it sits around in there for a little bit and follows you for a little bit, and maybe for a week or two, like you try to like be a better person and stuff. But there's a majority of people that like that thought enters their head and just goes right out the other ear, and I think, that in itself, yeah. I mean, who doesn't know they're going to die? I mean, like,
But
like,
I think it's one thing to think about or to know you're going to die, and another thing to contemplate the consequence of that. That there's a profound difference to me between the two. Like, realizing that when that happens, it's over.
It's done. Right,
and knowing it's going to happen, I think it's two different things. Also, here's another thing: you're wrong, I'm right. Interview's over.
This is my show, motherfucker. I roll the nickels around
No,
here.
I'm fucking around. But you know what I mean,
Of
though.
course.
It's kind of
Of
like
course. Yeah,
it's
of course.
contemplating the consequences of something versus actually knowing that it's there.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess there's no real look at LG again. We can tie it back into him. He lived a life of excess. I mean, it wasn't like unknown that he lived a life of excess, and that may or may not have played a role in why he developed the cancer that he had.
Yeah.
But as far as I can tell, he was a pretty normal dude, just enjoying life. He wasn't causing anybody no harm. As far as I can tell. I'm not friends with the guy. But I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't see I think everybody should just do that and just keep to themselves and just do what makes them the most happy and fuck all with the rest of this nonsense about fuck, if you want to do this or do that, go fucking right ahead. Leave me alone. I don't give a fuck if my neighbor wants to be whatever or do whatever, as long as it doesn't bother me.
I agree.
And the fucking who gives a shit?
Yeah.
I mean, man made all this stuff in this world. Man made drugs. Man made sex changes. Man made all this kind of stuff. You should be able to enjoy it, but just don't fuck with other people.
I totally agree.
It's a concept.
I'm very much a social libertarian. As much as I might be financially and fiscally, I'm highly conservative. But when it comes to social stuff, I'm generally speaking a libertarian. Do whatever you want. I couldn't care less. It should never impact my life in any way, shape, or form, ever. Right. I'm not going to.
And government should be there to serve the people. Government shouldn't have any private interest in mind at all. And private businesses shouldn't have nothing to do with fucking government. It's very, very simple. It's very, very simple.
Well, what definitely shouldn't happen is Nike shouldn't be telling me how to live my life, and then they run fucking sweatshops and slave camps in China.
And politicians shouldn't be making fucking six figures while the rest of the world is fucking struggling how to pay their mortgages and buy food for their family and getting told to stay at home while the rest of them get to go fucking do whatever the fuck they want because it doesn't apply to them apparently. And fucking politicians being friends with fucking celebrities and having these big galas and this shit's been going on for a long time, man. These motherfuckers are just all in bed with each other. They don't give a shit about the rest of us, and that kind of stuff needs to stop, man. It needs to stop.
I've actively started veering away from reading too much political stuff or cultural stuff, because for two reasons. One, it doesn't add anything to my life. I find it depressing for the most part, and secondly, I feel like there's a point to which if you don't play the game, then the rules don't apply to you, and that's how I see it. If I don't engage in the game whatsoever, then none of the rules apply to me. So as an example, the big hoo-ha over here right now is fucking idiot Harry and Meghan and their pathetic little interview they gave on Oprah. And everyone is like, if you disagree with them, then then you're horrible and a racist and this, that, and the other. It's like I said, if somebody asks me that, if I were a public figure and somebody asked my opinion on that, I would just say I don't give a fuck. I couldn't care less what they do. They're rich people. The royals are, in my view, a fucking blight on this nation. I can't believe that any tax money gets given to them. As far as I'm concerned, they can all fuck off.
I made a comment that the whole world is captivated by this, but I don't remember hearing that COVID was over. Who gives a shit about
the whole world's captivated by
them?
And so the whole world's captivated by it. And then one story that came out this week that no one's paying any attention to, which means far more for all of us than fucking Harry and Meghan. They ran a number of simulations, and there's now leading military figures in America that says if China were to take Taiwan and America were to try and do something about it, America would lose. I mean, that's terrifying. Because China are building up their military in the Pacific. There's undoubtedly they have designs on taking Taiwan. If they take Taiwan, they gain a further technological advantage because of a lot of the semiconductor factories and stuff that are on there. It's news like that has major impact on all of our lives. Whether two spoiled rich idiots were treated meanly by a bunch of other spoiled rich idiots, I don't give a fuck.
Who gives a shit?
I was about to say, if it were up to me, we would airdrop them over the fucking middle of the Pacific.
If it was up to most of the world, I don't think any country would have a fucking monarchy. I
No,
mean, it's ridiculous. Like,
don't you guys have a king in Sweden, don't you?
they have a king. I'm not Swedish, but yeah, they have a king here. yeah, they have a king and queen.
I hope you pay your respects, though, mate.
Of course, yeah, you have to be respectful. That's the Swedish way. You have to respect everybody.
I can never figure out with your accent, right, whether I'm hearing like a thick American accent or a Swedish accent. It's like like the episode of Seinfeld where he's dating that girl who's ugly in the light.
I have a terrible. I mean, maybe it's not a terrible thing, but I guess when I was a kid, I used to always like do impressions, and then I do vocals as well. And when I lived in California for 10 years, I kind of picked up like the vernacular there. But if I go back to like Virginia, for instance, like 2 weeks later, I'll be like, hey, what's up, y'all? How y'all doing today? What's going on? You guys want to drink some beer or something like that? Like hit that Southern drawl like to me, And then when I'm in Sweden, yeah, it's a combination of like Swinglish and then like actual like Swedish that I have to speak as well. So it kind of fucks up like what my actual like accent really is.
Like I said, I feel like it keeps kind of changing on the drop of a dime, but not intentionally.
It's not. It's really not.
I keep wondering whether it's my hearing that's changing.
No. You're dead on. You're dead on. It's been called out before, but it's a subconscious thing that I do. I mean, like for instance, like in Sweden, if I speak like I normally speak in like Virginia, for instance, a lot of people can't understand English because it's too fast and it has too much of a drawl. So then I have to change kind of the way I pronounce words in English to make the sentence like flow better and like the conversation flow better, So there's like an adaptation there. And then, Swedes have a completely different way of pronouncing things and where they put like what they call like betoning, which is like emphasis like on certain words. So you have to learn that as well when you're learning like the Swedish language. And yeah, it fucks it all up, man. Like I'm just a singer in a heavy metal band. Like I'm not a really smart guy, I have all this in my head. I can do it all, but like, yeah, it gets confusing sometimes, I suppose.
just speaking of your band, and we'll kind of wrap up with this. How's everything going? Were you surprised by the response that you got for the last EP?
I was, yeah. I mean, as an artist, I always think I can do better. So I'm working on some more stuff now, like to do this year. But I was really, really happy with the. Obviously, thank you again, for having me on, like, and talking about it.
No worries, man.
And Mike Hill as well, if he's listening, like he gave me a drop as well. And there's a certain semi-famous Finnish man that's going to be doing a review here soon. I think we all know who I'm talking about, Mr. Jerry from Rauta. He's going to do a nice review as well, I think.
Didn't Kelly T do one for you as well?
She put it in the story, but she's going to do an interview. Me and her haven't set the date yet, but we're going to do an interview together and talk about it a little bit. But yeah, no,
she's very cool. I like her.
She's great. Oh yeah, I talk to her from time to time, not as frequent as I do with you, but she lives in Australia, so the time difference is crazy. But every once in a while, we chat a little bit, and yeah, she's down for the cause, man. Like I really.
Oh fuck yes, yeah.
Yeah, I respect her.
She's more true than I am.
She's pretty badass, man. Yeah, but yeah, no. So just to wrap it up, I was going to say, like, I'm very, very happy with. I've got a lot of response. I've sold a few CDs, and people are really happy with it. And it's been good. It's been really good. Yeah.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I just on the topic of Kelly T. So I don't know whether you follow her on Instagram, but she seems to have an awful lot, and it's not surprising, but an awful lot of fucking geeks that just splurge their shorts at the sight of her. Today I sent her a message. This guy had liked literally every single photo on her entire Instagram. I said to her, she called him out in her story, and she was like, blah blah, thank you very much. And I said, he's probably printed that out and added it to the shrine that he keeps of you. And she kind of laughed it off, and I said, that's what happens when you're a hot girl and you're in a scene where many of the adherents look like fucking they escaped Chernobyl 2 days too late.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's to be expected. Yeah, I mean, but of course, it's disrespectful to her. But a lot of the guys that are, unfortunately, there's a lot of those internet dudes that are just, you know what I mean? Like,
I think she handles it very well.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah,
And at the end of the day, I mean, like, it's in some ways, I suppose it's like a form of flattery, but like,
Well, dude, so I've said this to people before. Girls go, "Oh, why is everyone looking at me today?" And I said, well, look, you could get pissed off about it, or you could see it this way. When you're 65, no one's going to look anymore, and then you're going to be thinking, "Man, when I was 25, guys used to think I was, all that in a bag of chips."
Well, I think it also plays into like the scene as well. I mean, there's not a lot of it's depending on where you live. Like if you live in a big city, that's not the case maybe, but like if you live in a small town or something like that, and you grow up there, there's not really like a lot of metal chicks, like, and if you're really dead into it, like that's your thing, like that's your, for whatever stupid reason, that's like what your ideal person is in your life. It's frustrating when you see somebody else out there in the world and like you're just like, oh man, I wish I could have a girl like that, and
I wish I lived in Australia.
Yeah, I don't think you want to. Yeah. No, she's great though, and she handles it fine. Of course, she's not threatened by any of those guys. If she lives in Australia, she'd probably fucking string them up like between two.
I was about to say she'd beat the shit out of them.
She skinned them alive before they ever like did anything to her.
Is your other half? Is she? I shouldn't say other half. Is your partner? Using politically correct speak.
Oh right, yeah, BPC man.
Are they into metal? See, I doubled up on the political correctness there.
She likes some metal. She likes some black metal. She doesn't like death metal whatsoever. But she's more of a goth post-punk kind of person, right? And but great music taste, and we get along more with our musical interests than I thought we would, because typically. Golf people don't really like metal too much, but we found a lot of common ground, and I've come around quite a lot to post-punk as well too. Like I've always kind of enjoyed it, but never really pursued it. Just really wasn't my thing, like I'm just like I said in the beginning of the podcast, stuff like Napalm Death and Discharge and Morbid Angel and Cannibal Corpse just interests me way more, so I couldn't really get into things like the Smiths and the Cure and stuff when I was younger. But as I've gotten older, I've, gone back to a lot of that kind of stuff, and I find a lot of good music in there. I do.
Oh, for sure, dude.
Yeah.
Like bands like Killing Joke and Sisters of Mercy and things like that. Fucking brilliant.
100%, yeah. And then like with bands like Killing Joke, that kind of always existed in my world, because like prior to like getting turned on to metal, I was listening to on my own. I was listening to bands like Nirvana and Soundgarden, but I was also listening to White Zombie, Ministry, and Killing Joke as well. Because it was just like that was the cards that were dealt to me. So I had these cassettes from my older cousin he would give me like different cassettes and stuff. So I was quite familiar with that kind of stuff. But when I wasn't really listening to a lot of like The Mission or like Sounds or like a lot of the really like
Sonic Youth.
Yeah, Sonic Youth or Sex Gang Children or like any of these really like you have to be in the scene to know kind of bands. Yeah. So I mean,
I'll tell you a quick story about goth versus metal to give you an idea of the kind of place I grew up in.
Okay, cool.
There was somebody that came to a church once that I was at who said that goth music and metal music are both evil, but they express it in different ways. With the head banging, so the up and down of the head, metal people are saying, yes, Satan. And when goth people dance, they move their head from side to side, and they're saying, no, Jesus.
That's good. That's good.
And there was someone, they were dead serious, and there were people in the congregation going, oh, you can't believe it. How can our kids listen to this stuff?
That's wild. That's super wild.
Anyway, dude, right, on that note, I'm going to
you got to check on your lamb, man.
Yes, I'm fucking starving. And I think, having had a beer on an empty stomach probably gave me some social lubrication for this episode. But dude, awesome catching up with you as always. We'll definitely do it again at some point soon. Unfortunate that we caught up under tragic circumstances. But like I said, there's kind of there's a positive message out of all of this, and that is
100%.
appreciate the good times, live in the moment, and I think understand that the good times won't last forever. So make the most of every opportunity that you have. Don't let things pass you by. When that band comes to play, don't sit there thinking, well, fuck it, I'll see them when they're in town again next. Because who knows? Maybe something happens and they're not there. There's a lot of guys in the metal scene that they they live fast, and unfortunately that catches up to you. Especially
live fast and die young. Yeah, it happens, man. Yeah. Hey, Jackie, I really appreciate it, man. It's always so nice to talk to you, and it was an honor to be able to do this episode with you. I really appreciate it, man.
Awesome. All right, brother. Take care of yourself.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye. Somewhat peculiar of To Ride, Shoot Straight, and Speak the Truth. A record which, when it came out, was certainly divisive amongst Entombed fans. I absolutely despised it, like I said in the conversation that I had with Evan. But I recently dug back into it, and there are a fair few very good tracks on it, including this one. I felt like this was a real overlooked gem, and I know that most folks are going to throw a track off of Left Hand Path or Wolverine Blues at you, but I thought I'd toss a curveball in there. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you guys enjoyed enjoyed my conversation with Evan. If you've not yet heard Quell's latest EP, I will drop a link to it in the description of the podcast. It is superb. I played a couple of nuggets off of it when he was on the podcast previously, so you can go and check that out if you haven't listened to that episode yet. But great guy, and just great catching up with somebody who I've hit it off with so well. And like I said, two dudes cracking a beer and appreciating the opportunity that they have to do so in this crazy world in which we live. Right now, for a quick review, Enforced are a 5-piece band hailing from Richmond, Virginia, the very location that I believe gave us Lamb of God. They brought out a record in 2019 called At the Walls on War Records, which I'm not familiar with. Killgrid has come out on Century Media Records. I have kind of written off the vast majority of what Century Media puts out. If it's anything not called Napalm Death, pretty much leaves me fairly dull. But I was digging through all of the new releases on Friday, and it was a pretty slow day, to be fair. Spotted Enforced, figured it would be something that I listened to for half a song and then switch over. And like I said at the top of the show, at the end of Friday, I had gone through the 9 tracks therein, probably about 8 times back to back. If ever you were sad about the fact that Power Trip, potentially won't be releasing any new music again, and if they do, obviously, unfortunately, it'll be without Riley, so, who knows how good it'll sound. You can take comfort in the fact that Enforced have really picked up the thrash crossover, banner from them, and they are absolutely kicking ass with it and taking some serious names. I mean, like I said, the 9 tracks on here are all razor sharp, super catchy. The riffs are fucking colossal. A lot of songs are bookended or broken down with these just unbelievably gnarly, vicious beatdowns. And every single performance, particularly that of Knox Colby, the vocalist, is just absolutely top notch. I was completely and utterly taken by surprise on this record. I love the hardcore elements that they throw in, but I think that they do an equally good job with all of the other influences, which they wear very, very proudly on their sleeve. One of the finest hours on the record is Trespasser. Listen out for the gang vocal at the end, which reminds me a lot of a song called Arms of the Few, which was put out by a legendary hardcore outfit named Strife. I think way back. I think probably around 97 as well. But wherever they got the idea from, it sounds fucking badass. So here is Enforced off of an album called Killgrid with a song called Trespasser.
What's the first again? God
Trespasser by Enforced off of an album called Killgrid. It's available on Century Media Records, and I will post a link to it in the description of this podcast. So go check them out, and if you end up buying anything from them, let them know that it was old Jackson from Into the Necrosphere that sent you, and encourage them to come on the show. My man Scott Bamford apparently read a couple of interviews or saw something with him, and it turns out Knox is a big fan of pro wrestling. He's also a big fan of various other things that means that he would be an ideal guest on Into the Necrosphere. But speaking of guests, like I said, I've got a pretty great lineup for the next couple of weeks. So I'm not entirely sure which episode I'll go with for next week just yet. I've got a few that I'm recording this week. I'm definitely talking to the guys from Gravier. So who knows? That one might be coming your way, or it might be Fredensdal, or it might be Deerside. You never know. Few things in the pipeline. Once again, man, I just want to say thank you so much to everybody for listening to the show. If you are one of the diehards that listen week in and week out, I really appreciate it. I know that the time is scarce. Time is our greatest currency. I have heard said many times, and as I grow older, I really do believe it. So if you've offered up some of that currency to listen to 2 hours of me talking nonsense, then I'm truly appreciative of it, and I hope I've made it worth your while. Wherever you are, whatever it is you're doing, I hope that you are safe and well. Until we speak again next week, I am bidding all of you bad motherfuckers a fond farewell.